Thank you so much for coming to listen to me. It's a pleasure to see so many beautiful girls and boys, or should I say ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for coming and listening to me. So my name is Rose Schindler. Okay, I was born in 1929 in Czechoslovakia. Now they call it the Czech Republic. But of course, when I was born, Czechoslovakia was a different part of Europe, okay? Now it's Russia. I come from a family of 8 children. We were 6 girls and 2 boys. And I was the 4th one, right in the middle. We lived in a village. We didn't have more than 15 to 1,800 people. We lived in a 3-room house. Can you imagine in a 3-room house with 10 people? And sometimes we would even have guests, okay? We had no electricity in the house. We had no indoor plumbing. We had to use an outhouse. I think that's what they call it. Anyway, we actually lived on a farm, and whatever we ate came from the farm. If we didn't grow it, we didn't eat it. The only thing that we couldn't grow was sugar and salt and things that we couldn't, grow in our yard. But otherwise, this is, we didn't even have any stores in our town. The only store we had was one store where they would sell paints and nails and stuff for building and stuff like that. But everything that we ate came from the farm. And if we didn't grow it, we didn't have it, okay? We had chickens and geese and ducks and cows and everything. It was really a nice life, very primitive. If you think about it today, how did we manage to live the way we did? But we didn't know any better. You know, when you don't have something, you don't miss it. It's only when you have it and then you don't have it, that's when. Anyway, so the Jewish community, I'm Jewish, okay? The Jewish community in our town was 1/3 of the people. And most of the Jewish men, they were tradespeople. We didn't have any high school in our town. 8th grade was the highest grade that was in our town. If anybody wanted to have higher education, they would have to go to the next city, which was 20 kilometers. We had Munkács and Ungvar, 20 kilometers on each side. And they were huge cities, very popular cities. And as a matter of fact, if anybody wanted to go from Munkács to Ungvar, they had to go to my hometown, which was called Serednya, okay? So, as I said, we had a nice life before the war. Okay, my father was a tailor, and he had several people working for him. And as I said, most of the Jewish people in our town were tradespeople. And you know, tradespeople, when kids finish middle school, elementary and middle school, then the boys go and learn trades. And they go and intern. You know what intern means, right? Like my father, who was a tailor, he would have always a couple of boys interning, and after 3-4 years, they were tailors, and they would go into their own business, open up their own shops. So, and this was with all kinds of businesses that way. So, but of course, there were a lot of very kids that wanted to go to high school and college and become doctors and lawyers and all that too. But they generally stayed in town, and they did what they did, okay? So, and most of the Jewish people that were in our town, the fathers were the tradespeople, and the non-Jewish people are mostly the farmers. They would do all the farming in our town, okay? So, anyway, in 1939, the Hungarians came, and as I said, we lived really a nice life, okay? The Hungarians came in, and everything started to change. How much time do I have, by the way?
40 more minutes.
40 minutes? Okay. The Hungarians came in, and, you know, during the Second War, Hitler took over most of Europe, was just walking in and saying, "We are here. This is, now you're my responsibility." There was no fighting, no nothing. And nobody thought anything so horrible was ahead of us, what happened to us, okay? So they just came in and took over, and it became Hungary. So in 1939, this became Hungary. And actually, my parents, my father and mother, they were born in Hungary, because before the First World War, it was Austro-Hungary. okay? So anyway, so little by little, everything is changing. I think I had 3.5 or 4 years of education in my life, okay? And as things go ahead, all the Jewish kids are not allowed to go to school anymore. So what could we do? There was nothing we could do. And all the Jewish businesses were taken away. Even though the non-Jewish people couldn't run the businesses, they still took them away. And what they used to do for all the men and all the boys over age 15, they would take them on trucks for slave labor. They would pick him up Sunday morning and bring him back Friday night. And my father and my brother, because I had an older brother and 2 older sisters, that's what they did. So, and all of a sudden, as Jewish kids, all of a sudden we are second-class citizens. Before, we were leaders in our town. And the non-Jewish kids started calling us dirty Jew, throwing rocks at us. It was not easy. We used to be friends with all our neighbors' kids, and we used to go to school together, but it's amazing how things change and how fast people think they're bosses and they can take over and do things. And unfortunately, we had no choice in the matter. So this is going on till 1944. In 1944, one day after Passover. You know what Passover is? Are there any Jewish kids here? Okay, Passover, Passover we don't eat bread. We eat matzahs, which are crackers, 12 inches by 12 inches. And the reason we don't eat bread is for our Passover is because, when the Jewish people left Egypt, they were always on the go. They never stayed long enough that they could stay in one place and bake bread, because, when you bake bread, it takes many hours, right? So during Passover, we just eat matzah. So, and otherwise, my mother baked her bread. She did all the cooking and all the baking, okay? So we never would buy bread otherwise, go to a bakery and buy a bread. So my mother said to me, go to the bakery and get a bread, because you have 10 people that are hungry. So what's the best thing to do when you're hungry? A slice of bread and butter. I think that's a great part, to have a snack. So, and in Europe, all the towns have farmers markets. Do you know that? And I bet you anything, those farmers markets came from Europe. They brought it to this country. People have been coming to this country for the past, I don't know how many, 300-400 years, right? So, and a lot of these European people would bring new things to this country. So anyway, in the farmers market, when we would have, having a farm, we have lots of eggs and butter and cheese and all kinds of other things that we grow. We would bring it to the farmer's market and we would barter, go for something that we don't have. You know what bartering means? Changing. Say if I have too many eggs and I go to the farmer's market, I take the eggs and I need some butter, or I need this, or I need that. And that's what we used to do on the farmer's markets. There was never any money exchanged, okay? So we had no newspapers in our town. We never had newspapers in our town, by the way. It's a village, really, and we had no radios. Were against the law, okay, when Hungary came in. And I don't think maybe 1 or 2 people in the whole town had radios. But when Hungary came in, if anybody had a radio, they had to give it up. So we had no news about anything what was going on. Almost for 4 to 5 years, we were in my hometown without any information what's going on in the world. Okay, so I go in to get the bread, and at the farmer's market, this man comes to the farmer's market with a drum. He's using the drum, and this is how they used to tell us what's going on in town, the news. Okay, and this man is announcing that all the Jewish people have to meet the next couple of days. We are going to be taken away. Everybody is allowed to bring one bag or suitcase. Of course, we never had suitcases because we never traveled. We lived a very primitive life. Anyway, but we did have a fabric store in town. So my mother said to me, go to the fabric store and get quite a few yards, because we had an aunt living with us who was a seamstress, and actually she would make all our clothes. Okay, so this way she can sew up some bags, so we each can take a bag take some stuff with us, okay? So this man is announcing all the Jewish people, everybody is allowed one bag to report within the next 24 to 48 hours. So I went and got the burlap, and you know what burlap is, okay? It's a heavy cloth, you make a bag out of it, and it's strong. So I come back, and my mother said, well, we need to start packing because tomorrow we're going to be going away. And my mother said to us kids, put on a couple of dresses, couple of sets of underwears, because we don't know where we're going, and we don't know if we're going to have a chance to do any laundry, okay? So we did all that, and so the next day we go and we come to the school. They take our names, and they told us before we come to the school, if anybody has any valuables, to bring it over there, and they will give it back to us when we come back. You know what BS means, right? So my mother and father, we really didn't have much jewelry in those days either, okay? So my mother had a wedding band, earrings, and a necklace, and my father had a pocket watch and a wedding band, and that's maybe a couple other pieces, that's it. So I'm wearing a chain on my neck. This was my father's pocket watch. I wear this chain every day of my life. The only time I don't wear this chain is when we go to a fancy party, and if I wear some jewelry and doesn't match, so I won't wear that. Otherwise, the first thing I get out of bed, this goes on my neck. This way, I feel like he's with me every day. So anyway, my father, he says, so my father said to me, my two older sisters, come with me. I put a few pieces of jewelry together in the shoe polish box. We're going to hide it in the ceiling, someplace up in the ceiling. So my sisters didn't want to go, but I said, Dad, I'm going to go with you. This way, when we come back, somebody knows where it is. So we did that, and when we came back after the war, I was the only one that knew where it was, and my two sisters and I, who survived the concentration camps, we shared the jewelry, and I ended up with this necklace. So anyway, so we go to the school, and then they take our name and all the information, and a lot of people did the same thing with jewelry, or if they had money, a lot of stuff like that was buried in Europe, because people knew. I guess people knew what was going on. Me, as a young kid, I didn't know anything, okay? So we go there, and so after they take all the information, they put us on oxen-driven wagons. You know how slow oxen go, right? I could walk faster than that. So, because we had no public transportation or anything. Everything we did was on our feet in our town, okay? Maybe once a week we would have a bus going through our town, going from Munkac to Ungvar. That's the only public transportation we would see, okay? So they put us on this oxen-driven wagon. They squeezed maybe 60 people or more in there. They were pretty good size. And it took maybe, 10 hours to get there or more. I really don't remember how. Finally, we get to Ungvar, and they put us all the Jewish people in our town. There were 600 Jewish people in our town, okay? They put us at a train station, and they were bringing in people from all kinds of villages. You know, in Europe, they have a lot of villages. They have probably villages here too, but not like in Europe. You could have 200-300 people living in a village. And that's how we used to live there. So all the small villages were brought to Ungvar, where we were taken. And they had make-believe tents. We had no buildings. It was a train station. And the reason they put us there, so we should be ready to be shipped on the train wherever we're going, okay? So finally we get there, and I said they put us in tents, and it was April of 1944. The temperature was like under 30 degrees. The part of the world where we lived in, the snow would come in the fall, and it would not leave before the spring. We would have snow at least for 5 months or more, okay? So we get there, and as I said, they put many families under every tent, okay? We kept each other warm. Of course, we all wore our winter clothes, okay? So I presume that they fed us. I don't remember what we did about the food. They probably fed us over there. So anyway, finally we're there, and we are surrounded by many men and guns and dogs, and they keep telling us if anybody tries to escape, they're going to shoot us on the spot, Okay, so I don't know how many people tried to escape because it's a huge area. As I said, thousands of people. So, so finally it came our day to go on the train. We go on the train, we get in the train, and they squeezed in maybe 80 people or more in every train. No seats, no windows, just a slat, maybe 4 inches by 12 inches on each side. It was actually those trains were mostly all the time. It's for maybe, I don't know, they had factories over there, bricks and and wood and all kinds of stuff. Okay, it was not a passenger train. Let's put it that way. So the train is going and going. The train does not stop. People are not. They don't stop for people to relieve themselves. The smell in the train is terrible. People are passing out, people are dying, people are screaming. You have no idea how it looked. It's impossible to even explain it. Finally, the train slows down. We must have been in the train at least 2 days. So you can imagine what happened in 2 days in a train if it doesn't stop for you to go to relieve yourself, right? So finally the train stops, and a door opens, and a man in a striped uniform comes on the train. And he came on the train to help us with our luggage, okay? So he's looking around, and he comes to me. He says to me, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 14. He says, "Tell him you're 18. And then my sister was holding one of my younger sisters, and he said to her, "Is this your child?" She says, "No, it's my sister." Fine. So he was looking around to see how many people he could save by us lying about our age, because they did not bring us there to have a good time. They brought us there for slave labor, okay? So, so here we are. We're walking for maybe 3-4 minutes, and we come close to the train, and there's 3 SS soldiers, and I believe one of them was Mengele, okay? So my father and my brother the SS soldier points to my father and my brother, go to this line. My mother and 3 sisters and brothers to a different line, and my 2 sisters to another line. And he says to me, "How old are you?" I said, "I am 18. And my sister Helen says, "Oh no, she's only 14. She had no idea that this man told me to lie about my age." You know, it happened so fast, quick, that we didn't have time to tell anybody, "Hey, lie about your age," to the other people in the train. So I said, "No, I'm 18. So he let me go with my 2 sisters. Otherwise, I would have gone with my mother and 3 sisters and brothers straight into the gas chamber. I never saw my mother and 3 sisters and brother again. Okay? So here we are waiting for further orders. Finally, they march us into a building, probably double this size. And they told us to take off our clothes, put it on a big pile, and then they shave our hair, not only on the head, but the whole body. And then they told us to pick up a dress from another pile, junk clothes. You know, when you travel, you come in with your best clothes. All we got was the dress and clogs, wooden clogs. We didn't get our shoes or socks or anything decent back. So here we are waiting for further orders. Finally, they tell us to go outside. We always have soldiers telling us what to do, okay? So we go outside, and we're standing in line waiting for further orders, and then there is a big fire behind the building, okay? And you can hear children crying, and you can hear people calling names, whatever. So my sister Judy said to this guard who was standing next to my sister, "What is the fire on? What's the noise, and what's all the crying going on?" He said they were burning hair. So my sister says, "Burning hair doesn't make this kind of a noise." So he said they were burning cripples. She did not ask any more questions. The next day when we came into the barracks, into the living quarters, we found out what they did. They didn't even give the people enough gas to kill them all the way. They burned them half alive. So we knew what happened to my mother and 3 sisters and brothers. So here we are. Finally, they march us into our living quarters, which is wooden barracks, okay? There is 20 barracks, okay? One barrack is a kitchen, one barrack is a bathroom, and the other barracks are for people to live. We have 3 rows of bunks, and every barrack holds 1,000 women. 3 rows of bunks, okay? No blankets, no nothing. We kept each other's bodies warm. This is, like April 1944, very cold. So we go to sleep, we get up the next morning, and they're serving us black coffee for breakfast. It's like black soot. It's not for human beings. You would take a sip and you think you're going to throw up. That's how horrible it was, okay? And lunchtime they would serve us a slice of bread with a piece of butter and or margarine, I would presume. And dinner time they would serve us soup. Now, the coffee that they serve us in the morning, it's in a pot. We don't have any canteens. We don't have any spoons. We have nothing. You take a sip. 10, 12 people, a pot, and you take a sip. And the same with the soup. We share a pot maybe with 10, 12 people, okay? So this goes on, and every morning, okay, they count us, because the reason they brought us here was for slave labor. We have to get up like 6 in the morning. We have to go outside, rain or shine, and the SS come and count us, okay? And then what they do is they come and select people to go to factories to work, okay? That's why they brought us here. They didn't bring us here to have a good time, okay? So the first, and you're surrounded by 12-foot electric wires. Our camp, 12-foot electric wires, higher than this wall, okay, I think. And you could see a lot of dead bodies on the electric wires, people with their hands holding on to it. And on the ground, you see dead bodies. And on the streets, you see people half dead. Nobody can imagine how that looked over there. It's like unbelievable, okay? So after the coffee, which nobody could drink, I told my 2 sisters, I'm going outside. I want to see what's going on, okay? So I am walking, and I see people like zombies on the ground, walking slowly. They don't know if they're coming or going. Someday somebody should make a picture and really show what really happened in those days. I know they tried to make some film, but they never really showed the horrible, horrible things that were going on in the concentration camps. So as I said, the next morning, after the coffee, I go and I want to see what's going on. And I'm walking and somebody's calling my name. My Jewish name was Rosie. Rosie. I said, my God, I knew I was popular. I didn't know I was that popular that somebody should know me in this God-forsaken place. This was really a God-forsaken place. She says, it was my father. My father always wore a suit, a hat. He had a short beard, maybe a 2-inch beard, and glasses. And there's this man in a striped uniform calling my name, shaven. When you're used to seeing somebody a certain way, and you see somebody a different way, you have to look twice before you can recognize them. He says, Rosie, don't you recognize me? I'm your father. The first thing he said to me, where's your mother? I said, at that time, I really didn't know what happened to them in the gas chambers, okay? Because I really found out after that. So I said, I don't know where my mother is or my other sisters and brothers, but I'm here with my 2 older sisters, Helen and Judy. And my father said, I'm here with your brother, Philip. We already have been selected to go to a factory to work. This was a women's camp, but they were there temporarily, okay? So he said to me, whatever you do, stay together, because you have a much better chance of surviving. And then he said, whatever you do, stay alive so you can tell the world what they're doing to us. So at that time, I really didn't know what was going on. Later on, we found out. So I said goodbye to my father, and we made up to meet the next morning, and he repeated the same thing. Whatever you do, stay alive so you can tell the world what they're doing. So he brought my brother, and I brought my sisters, and we said goodbye. We never saw my father and brother again. The next day, the 2 barracks of men, they were all taken away. So here we are in Auschwitz-Birkenau, Barrack 26, okay?
15 more minutes. 15 minutes.
Okay. All right. Time goes by so fast. Anyway, so here we are. the food is not, you cannot live on that food. It's not even for animals, okay? So the first, and then of course they're coming to select people to go to factories to work. That's why they brought us here, for slave labor, okay? So the first week or so, we didn't go out to get selected to work. So finally, we decided we need to go out front, and the SS come to our barracks to be selected to work. So we go out, and they always put me in a different line where they put my two sisters, because I was probably skin and bone by then, because we couldn't eat the food that they were giving us, okay? So, and we are told if they don't keep you together, you should run out of the line. Remember, there's thousands and thousands of women in this camp, and people are walking around like zombies. Hopefully, if you run out of a line, nobody will see you. If the SS would catch you, they'll probably shoot you on the spot. So we tried to do this for about three, 4 times to get selected to go to factory to work, and then they always would put me into the gas chamber line. Okay, the weak and the sick and the skinny, they would send them to the gas chamber, okay? So we decided that we would not go to get selected to go to work because they knew they wouldn't let me go, and we promised my father we would stay together. So here we are in Auschwitz-Birkenau for weeks and weeks and weeks, and finally we found out that we have a cousin who is in Barrack 2, and she's in charge of giving out the food to the survivors. Now, you know, when you're in charge of the food, you know very well you're going to get extra food, right? An extra slice of bread, which means an awful lot right now. So we found out that my cousins were in Barrack 2, so we went over there. The thing is, there were 1,000 women in every barrack, so they never knew how many people were there or not. So if we want to go to a different barrack, we could do it. If the Germans would find out, maybe they would probably kill us. But anyway, they didn't find out, so we moved to Barrack 2, and I tell you, it was like from hell to heaven, because I would have an extra slice of bread, an extra little bit of soup every day. Unfortunately, that's what people do, okay? So even though it was not the right thing to do, okay? So here we are, and they're always coming to take people to factories to work. That's why they brought us here. Finally, they came to our barrack, and they said they need 300 women to go to a factory to work in Freudenthal, Germany. So I said to my sisters, I know if I go in front of the SS, they're going to put me in the gas chamber line. Why don't you go out front, get selected, and keep an empty space for me? For always 5 in a row, okay? So, and I'll see how I can steal myself into this transport, okay? So as this is going on, I'm sitting in the barrack and waiting, how can I get out? We have a door in the front of the barrack, and we have a door in the back. But the woman in the front, the Germans were selecting the women to go to factory to work, and in the back is one of the women who was a guard, making sure that nobody goes through the back. So all of a sudden, I see one of the workers in the barrack is going to the back of the barrack, and she lets her out. So I quickly chase to the back of the barrack, and she says, where are you going? You're supposed to go out front to get selected to go to work. I said, I don't want to go to get selected to work. I said, my mother just walked out. I want to go with her. She let me out. My 2 sisters held a place for me line. This is how I got out of Auschwitz, okay? You had to have a lot of guts and a lot of brains. And anyway, so here we are. We are in Auschwitz-Birkenau for 4 months. I didn't even know that we were there that long, but I have 4 kids, by the way, and 9 grandkids. But one of my sons went on the internet, and he found out about the barrack and the information about where we went, okay, and how long we were in Auschwitz. And my son found out that we were 4 months in Auschwitz. And Auschwitz-Birkenau, this barrack Camp C was a transitional camp. You know what that means? You come and you go. Nobody stays there so long, okay? So 4 months. Can you imagine going 4 months without taking a shower, without washing your hair? We were full of lice. We couldn't sleep at night because the lice were biting us so much, okay? So as I said, you're not supposed to stay there. You're supposed to come, get selected, and leave. But of course, who stayed behind all in these barracks? The younger kids that stole themselves into the transport, okay? And the weak ones. So anyway, so here we are. So they, of course, they're not going to send us anywhere in our rags that we have, the one dress that they gave us, okay? So we have to go to the bathroom and they have to clean us up and get us ready to go to the factory. So we go to the bathroom, they shave our hair again, they disinfected our bodies because we were full of lice, and they gave us decent clothes. It's like a different world, okay? There were 300 women, and they also gave us regular clothes, and we had numbers on our dress, okay? Everybody had a number. So I have a number, but they didn't tattoo us in Auschwitz, they tattooed us in Freudenthal. See this? And they only tattooed the people that were going to work, not the people that went into the gas chamber, okay? So they say 6 million Jews were killed in the camps in Auschwitz. I think a lot more were killed because they never counted the people that went straight into the gas chambers when we got there, okay? All right, let me put my sleeves down. So anyway, so here we are, we're getting ready. They, as I said, they disinfect our bodies, give us decent clothes, and then they take our names and they give us the numbers on our dress, and they tattooed us when we came to Freudenthal. So here we are in Freudenthal. We have two buildings, 2-story high, 300 women, okay? And I was assigned to do gas masks, okay? And my two sisters, one of them was assigned to do work on German uniforms, and the other one on guns. So here we are working with German women, okay, because all the men were in the military. And they were very nice to us, very kind to us. Sometimes they would bring a little extra food for us. You know, they were trying to be good. So by working on gas masks, I had to sit on a high chair and pick up a gas mask, look inside, throw it down for 10 hours every day. And after doing that for 10 days, 12 days, I said to the one of the leaders over there, I said, this is hard work. I should get an extra meal. And good enough, she said, sure, you could have an extra meal every day. So she would give me an extra meal every day, and I would take it into our living quarters and share it with my sisters. So here we are in Freudenthal, and we're working, and they're always telling us, if we're not going to do a good job, they're going to send us back to Auschwitz. And we know what that means, okay? So we're working, and our living quarters are surrounded by electric fences, okay? Even though if anybody would try to run away, with us, being pretty skinny still at that time, if somebody survivor would try to escape, I'm sure some of the Germans would give us up. So anyway, so this is going on till May 1944, okay? No, 1945, okay? So we're in the factory about 7 months or more, or something like that. May 1945, and they would always come and take us and march us to the factory to work, okay? And it must have been May 6th or 7th, I'm not sure what date. We're waiting and they're not coming to take us to the factory to work. And I said to my two sisters, I'm going outside, and I want to see what's going on. And everybody said, you're not supposed to go out. I said, I'm going out, we're waiting hours and hours and nobody's coming, something is not right. I go outside and I see the electric fence, the gate is wide open, all the Germans ran away. This must have been May 7th or something like that. So quickly, I go out to the front of the gate there, and our building we had all kinds of, they were growing corn, you know how corn, right? Big corn. And I could hear the Russian language, and I could hear guns, and I could hear all kinds of things. Planes are coming closer. So I quickly found a rag on the ground and a stick, and I went like this in front of the Russians. Because if I would go in regular clothes in front of the Russians, they would think I'm German. They would probably kill me. They did a lot of shooting with German, okay? So I went out through the gate, and I went like this and to the fields, and the Russians came and they liberated us. It was the best day in our life, let me tell you. So the Russians were very good to us. They brought us anything that we needed, and if we didn't have it, they would say, come with me, we're going to go to town and take, there's lots of homes in the city, you could take whatever you need. And this happened to a lot of us. Actually, the Russian came the next day, and he said to me, do you want to go to town and get maybe a couple of dresses, maybe a couple of shoes? I said, sure, but And I said, but I cannot go alone. Can I bring a friend with me? Because this guy was like 6 feet tall, and I was, short, and I was kind of afraid, you never know what can happen. So I said, can I bring a friend with me? He said, sure. So I found one of the ladies who was a friend of mine there, and he held our hands, and he walked us to town. And when he held our hands, I felt like I was reborn, like I was a new person, like a whole new world was ahead of me. So, as I said, we went into the homes and we took what we needed. We couldn't take too much because, how much can you carry? So we stayed in Freudenthal for 2 weeks. And the reason we stayed in Freudenthal for 2 weeks, because all of us overate. When you eat too much, you can get sick. So a lot of us overate, and so after 2 weeks, we decided it's time to go to the train station and try to go home. So we went to the train station, and we couldn't get on the train. Of course, the trains didn't run too often, maybe twice a week, right? We waited 3 days at the train station. We finally got on the train, so it took us a month to get home because we had to change, because the trains did not go direct to our village or even to the next city. We had to change all the time. And all of a sudden, the whole world was kind to us. Where was the world when we needed them? Tell me. All this killing was going on. Nobody lifted a finger to help us. Sometimes I can't believe that how this happened to us, and nobody wanted to help us. So we were taken like sheep to the slaughter, okay? So finally we get home, and of course our home is not livable because the Germans held their horses in our house. So, of course, it was completely empty. All the furniture, everything we had was taken away. So we went to our neighbors and asked for our stuff back, and guess what they said? If you want to live, you better leave, otherwise we're going to finish Hitler's job. And those were our neighbors who were our friends, people we went to school with, we used to run around with. This is what they told us. Nobody wanted to give the homes back, give up their homes. So, of course, then we were hoping that my father and brother would come home from the war. We knew what happened to my mother and 3 sisters and brothers. So one day, somebody came home, and a gentleman, and he was with my brother in the camp. So, and he told me what happened to my brother. He says, they took us all out to the forest, made 200 men, made us dig a big hole, and they killed everybody. I said, how did you survive? He said he was too sick to leave the barrack. He couldn't get out of the bunk bed. He survived. So we knew what happened to my brother, and then we found out about my father, that also somebody came home that was with my father in camp. My father got sick, and they put him into the gas chamber and killed him. So my sister Helen says, I'm not staying here another day. I'm going to leave because we don't have a house. We did have a place to live in somebody else's house. That was not the problem. But who wants to stay there in a town like that where they don't want us? They don't want to give us anything back. So my sister Helen, she was the first one to leave. She left for Prague, and then Judy and I stayed a little longer because we wanted to see who came home from the war. Finally, we decided we're going to leave. So, and this is occupied Russia, by the way, okay? And they don't want people to leave. They just want people to stay there. So finally, we decided to leave. So we go to Ungvar, to the same town where we were taken to Auschwitz, the same town, same place. And we could not get a permit to leave. After 3 days, my sister Judy said, I'm going back home because one of the survivors came back from home and he wants to marry me, and he got his house back. So she's going to stay there. I said, fine. I'm not going to go back home. I'm going to go and join my sister Helen in Prague. So I finally got a permission to go to Prague. Went to Prague, and my sister told me that there is an organization in London called the 45-8 Society. Sir Leonard Montefiore, who is sponsoring this program, he wants 1,000 Holocaust survivor kids under age 16 to bring to England for rehabilitation. So my sister Helen said it would be a good idea if you would be part of that group. Okay, so she signed me up for that group. So I left for London. They found 732 boys, kids, girls and boys, but mostly 80% were boys and about 20% girls. So we came to London, and so there were 732 kids. So they put us in different hostels all over England, Ireland, and wherever they could find hostels, okay? So I ended up in Scotland with about 35 other kids. We stayed in Scotland for about 8 months, and little by little the girls and boys, they were leaving because they're finding relatives in the United States. They're going to Israel. They're finding relatives, and that they have a good reason to leave. So finally the hostel was closing down, so we went to the hostel in Bedford, which is near London, a town near London. We were 12 of us, okay? So we came to Bedford, and they were mostly all boys. And the next day they introduced us, and I saw a gentleman in the group, and I said, that's the man I'm going to marry. That was before I even met him. So 3 years later, Max and I were married. In the meantime, he had a girlfriend. You know, all the girls from the town in Bedford would come. They liked the Jewish boys, right? They're good things, those Jewish boys. They would come, and Max, he had a girlfriend for maybe, I don't know a few months. But anyway, after a while, Bedford was closing down because kids are leaving. They're finding us relatives. They're going here, there, and everywhere. So we moved to London, and we became girlfriend and boyfriend. And in 1950, Max and I got married. Okay, we were the first wedding to get married from the group in London. So we were married, and then a lot of the kids went to Israel. But we decided not to go to Israel because there are so many problems. A lot of kids are getting killed, and we are not ready for that. We had enough suffering. We're going to stay in London, or maybe if some relative in the United States want to send us papers, we'd love to come to America. So finally, Max's family was corresponding with his family, and they said, do you want to come to the United States? I said, that would be a great thing for us to go to the United States. My dream to go to America. You know, America is the best country in the world. Don't you know that, right? I hope you know it all. And I hope you appreciate it, too. This is the best place in the world. So we came to the United States in 1951, to New York. Our cousins, Max's cousins, met us at the ship. They gave us $20 and put us in a motel for 5 days, and they said, you're on your own. Of course, we spoke perfect English because we lived in England for 5 years. Within a couple of days, we found a room in somebody's house, you know, with the kitchen facilities and use of the bathroom. And then we got jobs within a week. We lived in London. After a year, we got our own apartment. We both worked. After living in New York for 5 years, my husband came to San Diego, 1955 Christmas time. I worked in the garment industry. I did very well over there in New York. My husband had a problem, but eventually he learned the computer business. So he worked in the computer business, and then he came to San Diego just for a 3-day visit because one of our friends was in all the boys had to go to the military when they came to this country. They had to report. Max was a 4F because he had tuberculosis in camp. So one of the boys was in San Diego, and he wrote to Max saying there's a lot of jobs in the computer field in San Diego. So Max came just for a visit for 3 days. He never went back to New York. He found a job at Solar, double pay what he was making in New York. So within 3 months, we already had a daughter in New York. We came out to San Diego, rented a house in North Park, and then bought a house in Allied Gardens. We have 4 children, 3 boys and a daughter. We have 9 grandchildren. And as I said, we are so thankful for letting this country let us come to this country and make a new life for ourselves, okay? So thank you very much for listening to me. Good luck to everybody.